News and views from the best voices in our game. Subscribe to the Cricket News YouTube channel and press the bell icon for unparalleled cricket coverage. Welcome back. Episode number 50 of the Cricket News Podcast. And I have with me an esteemed panel for the same. We are going to talk about a really esteemed tournament. I've been picturing myself, how this monologue is going to go. It's not going to be too big, but I thought, why not rephrase the words of an English sports star to describe this tournament. I mean, we can give England their due here. So yeah, I'm going to rephrase Gary Lineker's famous quote from after the 2014 World Cup. After the most enthralling of World Cups, 31 games, 12,463 runs, more than 400 wickets, 22 women played cricket on the 3rd of April. And at the end, do I really need to tell you? The Aussies won. So we can start now that I have done my bit for Gary Lineker and for England. We can start talking about Australia finally. And then we'll, of course, talk about the tournament. Joining me are Ananya, Upendran, Abhishek, Mukherjee. Yes, we did see that World Cup and we did see that finale. First thoughts, adjectives that you'll describe this tournament by, phrases, idioms, anything?
Australian.
Wow, that's short and sweet. That's nice. 40 years down the line, someone's listening to this, you know what happened, right?
Yeah.
Ananya, we would want to hear your laugh as well. I mean, why are you mute? We're recording this on Zoom, but we would want to hear you laugh as well at these jokes because the audio members would want their bit when they're listening to this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's some construction happening here, so I don't want them to hear that as well. So,
Oh, we can have some canned laughter.
Yeah. We'll have sound effects as well. Nice.
Yeah, that works.
But yeah, how would you describe this?
I don't know. It was one of those where I guess, I think I forget who put up the meme, but it was the Thor, the Thanos, I am inevitable. It feels like Australia and Healy I am inevitable. So it just felt like you knew what was coming. Yes, it was tightly contested and all that, but it was the other 7 teams that were really competing and Australia were like, yeah, you can do your thing. We know we're going to boss this. So
yeah. We use different words to describe them, like bullies, champions, bullies. Safest bet in the human history. At least in my 24 years on this world, I haven't seen a safer bet that Australia are going to win this World Cup, and they did. Yeah, so there wasn't much won by the people who bet on them. That we can say. Yeah.
See, many of us predicted, I heard that Australia will win this tournament without losing a match. Many of us predicted the same thing, and none of us are taking credit now because nobody takes credit for making a prediction this obvious.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't raise your hand and to acknowledge that you had predicted correctly that the sun will rise in the east.
Yeah. I mean, it looks made up, right? Their journey since the last World Cup to this final, playing 42 matches, winning 40 of them. I mean, that win-loss ratio of 20 is probably a star in the galaxy being watched by one of the best teams in the world. All the best teams in the world. We've talked about 1999 World Cup winning Australia, 2003 World Cup winning Australia, 2007 World Cup winning Australia, 1975 World Cup winning West Indies team, 1979 World Cup winning West Indies team. These are, of course, the men's team. We also have... Yeah, but no one matches this win-loss ratio. And if from now I'm going to tell this to someone else, they might not just believe me. You're joking, right? They did not win so many games.
Yeah, we're lucky we have video evidence now.
Yes.
It's not just paper. You can show them stuff.
True. Wikipedia isn't going to be my only choice. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it is unbelievable what they did. And I mean, just the longevity of it, 5 years is, all the other teams you mentioned it was a lot of cricket packed into a small time frame, but these guys are just like I don't know. I guess, yeah, they've bullied every other team that they've come across, and just kind of stumbled along the way twice, and they were just blips, I guess, on the radar.
Yeah, but they were just we
other
won't be perfect. We'll just give 2 wins away. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
it.
so there was a lot of talk about the 26 match streak that ended,
Yeah,
and now they didn't go on a decline, or didn't have a slump or anything. They have just silently built up another streak of 12.
yeah.
They're almost halfway there.
Such a streak builders they are, right? That
Give it
sounds
another
a
couple
nice
of
line.
years, and we shall be discussing whether they'll be surpassing that streak of 26.
Because I wanted to ask you both how, and it's stupid. It's really stupid of me to ask this after they won a World Cup. But I did want to ask you, for how long do you see them conquering the way that they are right now, given that you have also seen the other teams perform the way that they have in this World Cup?
I feel like all the other teams have a lot of catching up to do, and if they do beat this Australian team, it will be again a blip on the radar for Australia. It's not going to be a case of them suddenly falling off the perch. I think it's always going to be. I mean, I was listening to a press conference, Hilton Maring's press conference after South Africa went back home, and he said, Australia have an 8 to 10 year head start on everyone else. So, for us to catch up to them, it's going to take like huge number of resources plus time. And if you consider 8 to 10 years, that means a whole new batch of players have to come in and kind of reach that level. So, I mean, yeah, I feel like when you look at them now, it feels like they're going to be impossible to beat consistently over a period of time. And having said that, I do believe India have the talent to kind of overshadow them at some point in time. And I think Australia, they have said this multiple times, that they are scared of India when they're able to tap their resources and kind of wake the sleeping giant. But we don't have the system in place yet. So if anyone beats them in the next like 2 or 3 years, it's just going to be a misstep for Australia rather than an achievement for any other team, I think.
Yeah. You had an interesting take on the 2017 semi-final Harmanpreet Kaur knock, that it had, and I truly found it astonishing that the 171 had more of an impact on Australian cricket than it did on Indian women's cricket.
Yeah, well, it did. I mean, it was. I mean, all of them have spoken about how it was the kick up the backside that they needed. I mean, even in 2017, when you looked at that Australian team, you just thought they would win the World Cup. Yeah. But again, they've spoken about how they were playing on autopilot. So I think they were happy with where they were. They were content with where they were. So there was no evolution. But once they got kicked up the backside by both Attapattu and Harman,
they lost to England.
Yeah. So for them, it was like, wait, they didn't have any global trophies. They didn't have the T20 World Cup. They didn't have the ODI World Cup. So for them, it was like, wait, what is happening? And then, just the way they kind of went back and evolved from there, kind of reset everything. They've just zoomed ahead of everyone else. And I mean, it's so unfortunate that a knock like that did not spark something special in India. It went on to help Australia create a dynasty. I mean, I think we should have started creating a dynasty after that, but it's just been like, the people who lost took that in their stride and just like built something extraordinary. And for India to catch up, or for anyone to catch up, is going to take a long time.
Maybe it did in India. Maybe it inspired a generation, but the impact of that will
still remains to be seen.
Maybe 5 years time, 10 years time. By then, Australia will be 50 years ahead.
Yeah. So I guess it sparked something in terms of participation, in terms of just viewership and things like that. But it could have sparked so much more. It could have maybe not an immediate era of domination, but you should have. I think by now we should have created a team that should have been consistently challenging for world titles, and it not for it to be like they have the ability, but we are not sure. Because
Ananya, are you thinking women's IPL and just not saying it?
I've been thinking it for a very long time. I've ranted about it on every platform possible. So, I don't want to say it.
I mean, it's come to the stage where the players from the team that's won the World Cup are talking about women's IPL after they've won the World Cup as well.
Yes.
It's come to that stage. It's not just us on social media doing it. It's the players who are doing it, and not just India players. More people outside India talking about it.
See, in 2022, if a team does something special, brings about a change, it is important to that country. But if India does it, it is important to cricket as a global sport.
True. So true. But yeah, I think time has come. Relevant people, if you're listening.
Time is overdue.
Time is overdue. Yes.
It is overdue.
There you go.
It is overdue.
It's been long, and we need women's IPL soon rather than later. Right. I think it will be an absolute tragedy if I don't mention Alyssa Healy just now, because we've been rolling this for the last 10 to 15 minutes and we haven't talked about her. I think the one thing I'll mention about her is this. As soon as I saw that beer paracetamol reference, that's just it. No other player has influenced me so much. And then today, I see the interview where I think it was Beth Mooney who told exactly what she ate in the breakfast on the day of the final. And then she says, this just very calmly, I had a big hot cake. It was big. It was bigger than anything I'd eaten in my entire life. And that's how she rolled up on the day of the final. And she did what she did. So yeah, words on Alyssa Healy.
Well, I'm going to start with an interesting thing that Lisa Stalegar told me. It was a comparison between Elise Perry and Alyssa Healy. And she said, Alyssa Healy is like your next door neighbor. She's your best mate. You can walk up to her, talk to her, and you know that you're going to be best mates with her. And Elise Perry is like the person that you want to be best friends with, but you're hesitant to approach her. And like every time Alyssa Healy opens her mouth, that's exactly what I'm thinking. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like someone everyone can get along with.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's just like, I guess, everyone's champion. But
true.
I mean, hey, breakfast with champions, and we should get them to do an episode with her.
Yep. Gaurav Kapoor, if you're listening, it'll be a fantastic episode. I'll be the first one to watch it, and these two will be the first ones to watch it. Yeah.
Okay, you can say this, but hot cake doesn't. I mean, you don't need hot cake. I mean, the hot cake can get you to 170, but 171 was what, empty stomach or just bread? There was only bread in the dressing room, right?
Yeah, they've taken away the food.
Yeah, in Derby.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to credit Abhishek here as well, because he saved India from that one run. Yeah, that's super jinx. That's super jinx. Yeah.
So unfortunate.
I think that was the jinx of the tournament. I can safely say.
It was so unfair because, like, if she had gone past that, it would have been like a proper, the demons have been.
Yeah.
It
would have been the stamp on the tournament file. Yeah. The stamp that they needed. Yeah. That's
she should have gotten to 172 and then just walked off the field. Retired.
I'm so Indian right now that I'm saying that she would have done this just I don't know. But yeah, I think, the best part about, we go through the numbers. The numbers are just so incredible about this Australia team. You don't need to build narratives. Of course, people will build narratives. People will write books about this. People will make films. But their numbers. Yeah. So I think I saw a tweet from Dan.
Dan.
I don't know how to pronounce his second name. Liebke. So an Australian journalist, and he said that I'm writing a book on some of the best World Cup wins, and which team I want to win today, because that'll make the best entry in that book. But of course, people will have to write book about this win, this journey. I mean, it's it's incredible if they don't. But yeah, coming back to the point where we were, the numbers that we were talking about. So Rachel Haynes broke Debbie Hockley's record for most runs in a World Cup. In less than 2 hours, Elisa Haley broke her record. So this was something else going on at the final, right? There was this. They were not just playing for the final; they were playing for the number, something else itself, for glory of a different kind. But when you see that happen, when you see your two openers firing up like that, it just builds the rest of the team up, right? We saw Meg Lanning's body language change from the first over till the 40th. She was very chilled out. She was very chilled out watching these two bat in the pavilion.
The match was, I think, sort of decided in the first 2 hours.
Yeah.
Just like both semi-finals.
Oh, yeah, those semi-finals are so disappointing.
I expected England, South Africa to be, I mean, after the 2017 semi-final, I expected something like that.
True.
Yeah, but I also wonder if, South Africa were just so spent after that last victory. I mean, they had so many close games. I mean, they would have been emotionally drained by the time they got into the semi. So it would have had to be like Karp and Ismail bowling them the victory at that point. I don't think they had enough like mental energy to kind of carry them through a close
Do you think
game.
that happens? Could have happened because South Africa were a team essentially dependent on pace. So pacers get spent up more easily in a long tournament. Do you think there is? Am I overthinking this, or is there logic in this?
I think it would be, I mean, even in that semi, I do think the two of them were driving that team forward. Even though they didn't have their best day, they were the ones providing the energy to that group. So I think just generally they did seem quite flat compared to every other.
Because South Africa, regarding South Africa, I mean, they actually did something that no other team did. They other teams 159 wickets. The Pacers took 159 wickets. The spinners took 196. So spinners did actually better than Pacers, we can say. 17. South Africa, 47 wickets to pace, 4 wickets to spin. 4 in the entire tournament. Those 4 wickets came at 120 apiece. So South Africa in the same tournament on the same pitches, using a completely different attack and winning, and finish second in the league stage.
True.
So, I'm slightly confused by this. What kind of pitches were these? Where one team feels an entirely different attack from the other sides, and still does so well.
Well, I think it's also the quality at their disposal, right? I mean, the three seamers, aside from Klaas, Kaka, Ismail, and Karp, are arguably the best seam trio in the world at this point in time. So, I mean, just the quality that they had at their disposal in the seam department would have meant that, with someone like Mlaba, I guess they could have taken a punt on her to play her at some point. But I think the way Klaas bowled in those first couple of games meant that they didn't want to, because I think she really stepped up and did a very good job. So, it would have been we have really high quality seam. So it's a very Indian thing to do, right? India so long played one seamer and 4 spinners. So it's just, Yes, it was. We will play to our strengths.
Well, you guess what? I think we have a nice bit of segue now to talk about the team that beat South Africa and made it to the final, England. 3 matches in, and we're thinking defending champions, and 4 matches later, and we're thinking defending champions. So it was good. It was good. I personally thought the comeback was good. Of course, Australia, another level, but the comeback after losing the first 3 games to then make it to the semi-final against South Africa was good enough for them. And they had some key performers on their way, probably with the ball when we talk about none more so than Sophie Ecclestone. who was wonderful throughout the tournament. We, of course, Abhishek Da had the debate about her getting the Player of the Tournament award, but that's gone to someone who has broken all the records.
No, tell me.
Yeah.
She took 6 for 36 in the
True.
semi-final.
True.
Even if she had gone wicketless, she
Hmm.
would still have been the leading wicket taker of the tournament
True.
without her best performance.
I think it's about the records that Healy broke. It's about those mammoth of records that will take something to be broken by just one player.
Yeah, but I also think, and Healy said this herself, isn't the player of the tournament someone who's kind of been consistent through the tournament? So if you were going to, I'm very anti-batter as it is, but if you're going to give it to a batter, you might as well give it to Rachel Haynes, who was just who carried that lineup and flew under the radar.
Sure.
While Lanning and Healy and all these century makers were getting all the plaudits.
Yeah.
I mean, you would have given it to Rachel Haynes then.
Scored the first century herself. Yeah. Interesting topic. But let's come back to England.
Which is why in the Men's World Cup, there used to be a concept of awarding the player of the tournament. I think it was there in 92 and 96, awarding the player of the tournament before the semi-finals.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's like the WBBL MVP. That's what they do. It's based on league stage performance.
But don't you think that sort of cuts out to crucial performance matches, the knockouts?
You're giving player of the match anyway.
Yeah. A player of the player of the tournament. The player of the tournament is the player of the tournament. She doesn't necessarily have to be. It is not the player of the side that won the tournament.
Yep. Yeah, it's like Susie Bates in 2013 was the player of the tournament. New Zealand didn't get to the final. But,
listen, we're having multiple awards these days in multiple leagues. Might as well break this down into a player of the tournament and an MVP.
You think Sophie Epperson should have won the Jana Bank bankable player of the tournament?
Oh, yes. I'm all in for that. I'm all in for that marketing. So, yeah, but let's come back to how England performed. I mean, what did you make of the team that showed up into the final? How well had they come up after that Ashes defeat, after those first 3 games? What did you make of this side going into the final? And what's the hope for them now moving into the next World Cup? I mean, it's a big question, but yeah, what are your thoughts?
I thought they have the second best infrastructure. It was only logical that they made it to 2 consecutive finals.
Yeah,
and they have long, intense tournaments at home, which probably prepares them to come back after a string of defeats. Equips them. In India, in a team in India, you obviously are. You either play for Railways. Or you basically prepare yourself to lose against Railways in the final. So it's not like that. You can lose and you still come back to win a tournament. And England cricketers are, have that non-monopolistic tournament in their country.
Ananya is just eager to bounce up here on the discussion. Yes,
on the Australians of domestic cricket, of Indian domestic cricket.
Oh wow!
The less said about them, the better. About England, look, I think a lot of credit should go to someone like Heather Knight and Lisa Keightley. I think just the fact that they didn't kind of pounce on their team and become really emotional around the results at the start was very important. They'd come into every press conference and just say, we haven't been playing our best cricket and that's why we're not winning. It's as simple as that. So just to go back and say, these are the controllables. We fielded terribly. And, if you drop like 7 catches, you're not going to win a game. So just, I guess, the simple understandings and just the fact that they kept very calm. I feel like any continent team for that matter would have just gotten very emotional and been it's not enough and we are very sorry and things like that. But just, I guess, the understanding that they weren't playing their best and therefore they didn't deserve to win. And I guess again having a really good experienced group of players in that team, Brunt and Shrubsole and Siver and Knight, and I mean they had so many people who'd won championships around the world and World Cups as well. So I think that definitely helped them. And like he said, I think second best infrastructure in the world. They're kind of catching up to England. They have professional domestic players. So they know how to win big tournaments. It was just about them kind of finding their groove. And I mean, for them, that groove was the bowling attack. I think that the two opening bowlers weren't pulling their weight through the Ashes. I mean, Brunt had a great Ashes, but I think Shrubsole wasn't bowling her best and she was kind of unlucky. So just for those two to kind of lift their game when the chips were down was very important for them. And the big players kind of stepped up when they needed it. And unfortunately for Nat Siver, when she stepped up, it wasn't enough. I mean, it was against Australia.
It has to be remembered. She scored 2 centuries against this Australia side in the same World Cup, remained not out in both. It will have to be remembered.
Also bold and yeah. So she is another contender for the player of the tournament.
True. Yeah, very true. But yeah, just wanted to ask you both this. Ain't no one gonna put their fingers on the 100 now in England? That's obviously helped the infrastructure, right? That's obviously helped the team. That's obviously helped the players.
Well, they did have a KSL before that, which was equally competitive. I mean, of course, there weren't as many eyeballs on it, but I think all the focus and all the criticism of the 100 has always been from the side of men's cricket. I don't think anyone involved in the women's game has ever said anything about it.
Yep.
Over time, we'll acknowledge that the 100 was probably. See, have you heard some of the commentary on? I heard some of these. I actually heard. Basically, they were explaining what the umpiring decisions mean. So they were appealing to to the next generation of spinners.
Yeah.
So people who will be 18 in some point, people who will be 20, 25 in some point.
True.
They were trying to convert them to cricket.
True.
So I don't think how English cricket will be hampered by that. I don't get it actually. As if England had not been losing consistently before the 100.
Burn. Okay, but let's return back to the Women's World Cup. I think we spoke about this. I think last time the three of us were chatting, we said, I said that may the conclusion be better than the GOT finale. I'd say it was better than the GOT finale, but it wasn't as good as the league stage, right? There were some incredible matches, and that would have been just impossible to repeat because of a certain team that went on to win, who featured in 2 of those knockout matches. So, yeah, that would have been difficult. But your favorite memories from this tournament, what are the memories that you are going to look back and say that, wow, what a tournament this was? And in what sense did this particular tournament exceeded your expectations from what you had? Because Ananya, I remember you saying that this will be the closest World Cup ever. This, has the potential to be the closest World Cup ever. This was the first episode before the tournament kicked off. So yeah, I want to know your highlights from this tournament, the two of yours.
You can go.
Fatima, non-Fatima.
Oh yeah. Someone said 2045 World Cup. They're playing. Yeah.
Riley and Fatima. Yeah.
In the final, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah. So essentially, how I will remember is how the teams, how Pakistan and Bangladesh, the two teams that finished at the bottom, performed.
Yeah. True.
So this opens up, and one must question the ICC. Why is it still an 18 tournament? Sri Lanka won their only match in the qualifier.
Yeah.
Thailand won about, I think, 3 matches out of 4 in the qualifier.
True.
So why are these teams not being considered good enough to play in the World Cup? Why is it not a 10-team World Cup? Why is it not a 12-team? There was an 11-team World Cup back in 1998. why have we gone backwards?
And
Yeah.
There is no reason.
why are we waiting till 2029 to make it a 10-team tournament?
I don't know. I mean, are Sri Lanka and Thailand not as good as some of the teams here? Can they? We saw what Sri Lanka can be like 5 years ago. Sri Lanka beat two of these teams in 2013.
Yeah.
The only reason Thailand doesn't make it, and I think I'm getting repetitive over this, is because they do not have a full member status, despite them being inside the top 10 teams, the women's teams, and that is because their men's team doesn't play well. And full membership depends on how good your men's team are. Teams
Yeah.
without a women's team can have full membership, but teams whose men's teams do not play well will not get
Yeah.
full membership, irrespective of how well your women's teams play. And I think that is simply unacceptable.
Yeah. And you made a very valid point. A tournament can only be not only be judged by the teams and their performances on the top of the table, but also the ones at the bottom,
Yes.
because they are the ones who are going to give these teams on top a competition and make it even more exciting for the viewers.
The teams at the top are contribute. Fight for the cup. The
Yeah.
ones at the bottom may put the world in the World Cup.
Oh yeah! Wow! Wow! We have a quote. Producer Saab. Yes, if you're listening to me, which you are when you are editing this episode, please remember. Yeah, Ananya.
Well, look, favorite moment of, I guess, the favorite bits of the World Cup. Just the fast bowler fan in me would say watching Kaap and Ismail just do their thing, especially Shabnam Ismail in those middle overs. I think it was just something else, just another beast. So
Yeah.
watching those two go about their business was lots of fun. I think just wouldn't call it a resurrection, but I guess Anya Shrubsole kind of rediscovering her form was a big thing. I feel like, if you look at it, all the teams with good in-swingers were the ones that progressed and the ones that really challenged other teams. And I know this is a bias, but I just feel like women's cricket, you're always I think your highest wicket takers or your best bowlers are always going to be your in-swingers, because I feel like the women's game is still kind of figuring out how to play balls on the stumps and how to score runs down the ground. So yes, Anya Shrubsole. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, watching Bangladesh, Fatima Sana's slower ball was like the best thing to come out of the tournament for me. But yeah, I think watching Bangladesh was lots of fun. I mean, they challenged every single team. I think the only two teams that they got sort of blown away by were, England and to some extent India when they came out to bat, but they had India under pressure at the start of the game. So, I mean, just the fact that they came out, and I think Nigar Sultana said this in one of the press conferences, and it's my favorite quote. She said, cricket is no longer played, cricket is not played with name. So we don't care about the name. We're going out there and playing on the field. So, just that sentiment of them to come out with confidence and be like, we may not be challenging you for the cup, but we're going to push you right to the end, and we're going to make you, earn the win. Yeah. So that celebration after Salma Khatun got Meg Lanning, just the silence that descended in the commentary box. Yeah. I mean, the silence in the ground, and then you could hear the shrieks of all the fielders. I think that's definitely a memory that's going to stick.
Wonderful. It's almost like treasure coming our way, right?
Yeah,
you two assessing the tournament.
Cup, and for a single moment, they did not seem overawed or anything.
Yep.
Yeah,
they belong there. And once again, I'll push for the cause of Sri Lanka and Thailand. It has to be a minimum of a 12-team World Cup. Yeah. Minimum of 12 teams. I can't see why they won't do it.
Yeah, or at least, expand the championship to include 12 teams at this point. If you're saying logistically it's not possible for us to do, a 10-team or 12-team World Cup next, then include 12 teams in the championship, allow them to grow, allow them to play more, and then it just becomes easier. I mean, there's more competition. Bangladesh played 42 ODIs before coming into the World Cup. Every other team had an average of around 250 games head start. So they're never going to probably beat them. I mean, it's going to be an upset. But just that gap is something that can so easily be covered, I think.
Yeah. So here's how I put it. We just had a sport that cricket or cricket fans aspire cricket to be like. See its European champions bow out of the World Cup. Bow out of the World Cup. Yeah, that's what essentially happened. Why not have these bilateral series as necessary qualifiers for every team except the hosts or maybe the champions to
Hosts and
play?
defending champions.
Yeah. Why not have everyone play up against each other? And then you put, say, if you have 8 teams now, put 10 teams into the World Cup. And you might as well see those upsets come in. You might as well see, sorry, England fans, and England bow out before going into a World Cup. That will be something incredible to watch, won't it be?
Well, the championship is essentially that,
Yes,
but it's
that,
a championship that's restricted to a certain number of teams. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess expanding the championship would lead to that. So, I mean, I think
true.
they need to find a way, or they need to realize that they can expand the
Yeah.
championship quicker, because that's essentially what's going to help you grow the game. I mean, if you're saying that T20 cricket is the vehicle to grow the game, then at least
True.
kind of expand that World Cup. They're not doing that. They're not doing this. So, it's a question of how are we actually expanding the game? If it's just by, including more teams in the qualifiers, that makes absolutely no sense. I mean, all these teams are asking for is an incentive, and the World Cup is an incentive. So give them
Instead,
that.
what they did was they gave ODI status to matches in the qualifiers.
And then
Thailand and USA played their first ODI, and then they took away their ODI status.
Yeah. I remember that image, and I'm sure you two do as well, of all the Thailand players lining up their mobile phones with that screen. Oh my God.
Remember, all of that happened only because their men's team do not play well.
Well, ICC. Yeah, please. Relevant people. Take this into account. Yeah, I guess the one question that we can round up this on is, where does cricket go from here now? Yeah, what's to look up to now that the World Cup is over, now that people are missing 6 a.m. alarms in India at least, or even the 3:30 ones. I don't know if anyone's missing that, but 6 a.m. I'm sure they are.
So let me see. There'll be the 100. There'll be England.
South Africa and England.
So South Africa, I'm sure. And there'll be CPL will have women's cricket, and PSL will have women's cricket. There'll be WBBL. Is there any major country I'm missing that won't be having a league?
There's a women's T20 challenge. How can you forget that? That's
Right.
like.
But if you don't get to, if your team bats really well, you may not get to bat. And
Oh my God.
Just don't get to feature, basically.
Abhishek, we have 4 matches. Do you understand? 4.
So one team will play 2 matches. And you may be in the
Yeah.
reserves for both. And that may be it.
Yeah, I mean, just to think, like, Meghna Singh did not feature in a single game in the last Women's T20 Challenge, is now in the World Cup squad. Meghna Sabbineni and Sneh Rana were not even part of any of those squads. Like, I mean, okay, I'm going to go off on a very different
No,
tangent.
you can.
No.
She doesn't want to. She doesn't want to.
Will never end.
But, I hate to say this. This is not Alana King, India story version 3 months ago. She's not playing international cricket. Now she's won the World Cup. No, this is not that. If any of the Indian fans are thinking about it that way, no, it's a separate thing altogether. Expectations, Indian cricket, next World Cup cycle?
Well, they have to find a coach first. No coach, no support. Like, we don't know what is happening. They came back and then the coach, they said, okay, thank you.
We hope there's a Chak De India coach somewhere there who's lining up for is team mein ki gunda ho sakta hai. No, not that. And saying that to not the team, but to some other people, if you get what I mean. But yeah.
I don't know. I mean, first, we don't know how long the two legends are going to play.
Yeah.
Probably, almost certainly not until the next World Cup. So they won't be part of that plan. We may have a different coach.
True.
So too many things unknown. I mean, two two slots we know two very important slots that need not that did not need to be filled for 2 decades now need
Yeah.
to be filled, and a
Yeah.
new coach. And how do
Yeah.
you plan without doing this,
And a new
addressing these
captain.
first, and a new captain?
Yeah. It's going to be major shifting going on. Some major changes going on in Indian cricket now, and we hope to see them.
See,
We hope to see them
the
soon.
talent is there. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that. But these people need to play together, play more often.
Yeah. Yeah.
When is that going to happen? When is their next international match?
And this is like Smriti Mandana coming out before the final, the T20 Challenge final, saying we don't know when we're going to play again. So we don't know when they're going to play again. I mean, obviously there is stuff
Yeah.
coming through, but I mean, I'm just because we didn't mention it. Like, is that the way Julian Goswami is going to bow out? Like, not
Yeah.
having played a game, having watched from the sidelines her team
Yeah.
crash out of a World Cup. I mean, just the fan in me would love for the BCCI to be like, okay, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, someone come over.
Yeah.
Let's give them a farewell. If they
True.
are deciding to retire, then
Yeah.
let's do something.
Deservedly
like that.
so. Deservedly so. Yeah.
But I mean, I know sport is a cutthroat environment. There's no place for sentiment and all that. But if that's the last image that we see of her sitting in the dressing room not playing,
It is. Yeah, I know it's cutthroat, but if she is fit, she'll still make it to the side.
she will. But I think the fact that she'll make it to the side is also a reflection of the fact that we haven't prepared anyone to take her place.
Yeah.
The people we could have prepared to take her place, we've constantly chopped and changed.
You have played until
True.
very recently. Do you really see more fast bowlers coming up on these pitches?
No, but I don't see more fast bowlers coming through in the domestic system more because of the attitudes that we have towards them. Like, you think like Meghna Singh, Pooja Vastragar, even Mansi Joshi for that matter, are all high quality bowlers. The attitudes we have towards them, they're all becoming like, to some extent, like Pooja. Like they'll all start concentrating on their batting because they know that's their avenue into the Indian team. And I think just the fact that you had someone of the stature of Julian Goswami and you haven't been able to find a group of players to nurture under her and to create what South Africa have is, I mean, I think that's just a reflection of the system and just how badly we've handled our fast bowlers. I don't think it's because we lack talent or because we don't have tall fast bowlers or anything like that. It's just a reflection.
True.
That we're always measuring the fact that we're always measuring these players against standards that they can't reach. Like, you're measuring them against Julian Goswami, not possible. So,
see, essentially, you will know this better than almost any of us. So, when a new fast bowler is spotted, if she is spotted, what is done?
Nothing. We don't have a system a pipeline that they get into. So everything is by accident.
Yeah. Well, there are some big questions, and we certainly hope that they get answered, because as one World Cup ends, another cycle begins and another journey begins. We hope that this is the journey that we have been waiting for some time now. And it's been a delight, as I say. What more could we have asked for the Cricket News Podcast episode 50? Yeah, episode 50. We are half century in. And Thank you so much, Ananya. Thank you so much, Abhishek Da, for joining us. It's been a pleasure chatting World Cup with you, chatting cricket with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And to all our listeners and to all our viewers, if you like what we are doing, then do subscribe and share so that we keep on doing more of this. Thank you so much.